Today's scripture reading, Galatians 2, verse 16.
We believed in Jesus. We believed in Jesus.
We believed in Jesus as the Messiah, so we might be saved right before God by trusting in the Messiah, not be trying to be good. May God bless the reading of the scripture.
Good morning. It's good to see everyone here. Those of you watching online, we're glad that you're here as well. Kai, I want to give a shout out to you. Good job with that scripture reading. You did an excellent job. And thank you, praise team, for leading us despite technical difficulties. And God answers prayer and we got the screen back. And I do want to give a shout out to some people here, two couples in particular. Did you know that this week there were two couples that celebrated wedding anniversaries? We have the Alabaras who Uncle Bing and Auntie Eden, who celebrated 47 years of marriage. And yesterday, I just found out that Uncle Bert and Auntie Edith celebrated 56 years of marriage. Let's give God a round of applause. That is amazing. That is amazing. God is so good, isn't He? He truly is good. And look, if you're a first-time guest, we are so glad that you are here. Seriously, we are just so glad that you've come to worship with us. And here is the free book gift that we give to every family unit, every person, every family unit. It's a book entitled The Prodigal God. If you don't have it, you need to read it. Powerful, powerful, powerful. We want to give it to you as a gift. So fill out your Connect card, and then you can pick it up with our reception team, our Connect team, and they will get you this gift. So we're in the third part, or the third teaching of our sermon series entitled Breakthrough, Why Honesty Changes Everything. I don't know about you, but I love reading productivity literature. I'm a productivity geek. Okay, so let me just share with you some of the authors that I've read over the years. Have you guys heard of Stephen Covey in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? All right. So he came out with this book, and he talked about how you can plan and shared some details, a framework by which you could plan and be productive. And then I read David Allen's Getting Things Done, GTD. Anyone heard that before? Okay, Getting Things Done. And then recently there's another author by the name of James Clear. He wrote a book called Atomic Habits. Have you heard of that book? It's still still a top seller, top 10 on Amazon. It's selling a lot of books. There are a lot of books out there about being intentional about growing our habits and forming better habits. But I believe that there's something even more foundational and important than just forming good habits. We need to be honest with ourselves. Honesty before habits. Character before commitment. We have to be honest with ourselves. This year, I believe in our church, we need, before we change our corporate habits, and we're going to be on that journey in the next few months, we need to be honest about our current reality. Okay, we have to be honest about our current reality. I'll give you an example. This week, I went to the dentist, found a new dentist, and I was there at the dentist, and I had gone a few times, and so I totally forgot what the procedure was about. So I said, "Can you please remind me why I'm here again? You just told me to come, so I'm here. Can you remind me?" "Oh, yeah, here." So they pulled up the x-ray, and they showed this is the tooth that we're going to be working on today. So they took an x-ray when I first came in there in December, and that kept us honest. We had an honest assessment of where I was, and because we had an honest assessment of the tooth that needed to be worked on this past week, they were able to implement an intervention to fix that tooth. So it starts with honesty. If we're not honest with ourselves, we don't know what interventions to apply to our lives. And we have these 5 prayer points that we are being very intentional about. Lord, thank you and bless us. Number 1, it's in your bulletin here, to honor God's faithfulness in our church's story. We want to honor the story of how our church has been here for the past 40 years. Number 2, we want to make the gospel the center of our story. Number 3, we want to have clarity about God's mission. 4, we want to be intentionally engaged in our community. 5, we want to have a new church space. These are great aspirations and things to pray about. But before these things can be accomplished, we have to have an honest assessment of where we are and need to be able to look in the mirror and say, yeah, there is a problem. We have to be able to name it. And until we are able to name the problem, we won't be able to grow. And so today's teaching in our series is entitled, When Integrity Demands Honesty. And what we're going to learn about today is about a powerful form of honesty. We're going to learn about a powerful form of honesty that I believe if you learn and apply today's teaching, you will experience a breakthrough. I believe that if you learn and apply today's teaching, you will experience a breakthrough. And this is a universal law in every dimension of human life: sports, career, school, parenting, marriage, faith. This one form of honesty can truly be the catalyst for a breakthrough in your life. And we're going to learn about this form of honesty in the book of Galatians. So come with me. We're in the book of Galatians in the New Testament. If you don't know where that is in the Bible, go to the table of contents and you'll see Galatians. All right? If you don't have a physical Bible, there's one in the pew in front of you. If you don't have that, pull out your smartphone or your tablet and go and open up the Bible app or go on BibleGateway.com. And most of the passage is also in our bulletin, Galatians chapter 2, verses 11 through 16. So I want to encourage us to see it with our own eyes. Galatians chapter 2, verses 11 through 16. Now, what is Galatians? Well, Galatians is a letter written by one of the foremost authors of the New Testament. His name is Paul. And Paul wrote this letter to a person by the name of Cephas, which, and really that's another name for Peter. And you'll notice how we just jump right into the passage and then it's like, boom, fireworks. Check this out. Galatians chapter 2, verse 11. When Cephas came to Antioch, I opposed him to his face because he stood condemned. What a way to start a passage, right? He's writing a letter to the believers. He's saying, Peter, when he came to Antioch, I opposed him to his face. I rebuked him because he stood condemned. Verse 12. For before certain men came from James, he used to eat with the Gentiles. These are the non-Jews, okay? But when the Jews arrived, when they arrived, he began to draw back and separate himself from the Gentiles because he was afraid of those who belonged to the circumcision group. Verse 13. The other Jews joined him in his hypocrisy, so that by their hypocrisy even Barnabas was led astray. All right, so let's kind of explain what's going on here. So Peter is one of the disciples, the original disciples of Jesus, one of the apostles of Jesus. Jesus died and he resurrected, and now Paul is going around telling people about the good news of Jesus. Okay, this happened 2,000 years ago. And while he's going around, now this is a faithful guy, right? Someone who loved the Lord and who was going around telling people about the good news. He went to hang out with some non-Jewish people. They called them Gentiles. And so he pretended like, hey, we're friends, we're hanging out. But then when these other Jewish lawkeepers came, he kind of said, hey, he left this group and pretended to be like them, and he got them into this big mess. You see, Peter knows the gospel. Paul wrote this. He said this in verse 12, for before certain men came from James, he used to eat with Gentiles, but when they arrived, he began to draw back and separate himself because he was afraid of those who belonged to the circumcision. He knew the gospel. He knew that Jesus came. I mean, what is the gospel? The gospel is the story, the life, the death, and the resurrection of Jesus and God's story of how he saves sinners. He knows the gospel, but Peter is not living it. He hangs out with the Gentiles, and he pretends to be like them. But when the Jewish leaders come, he distances himself from the Gentiles, and then he pretends to be a Jew. So who is he? Is he really a non-Jew, or is he a Jew? He's having an identity crisis, a double identity crisis. You know, there's another word for pretending. There's another word for pretending. The verse says it in verse 13. Did you catch it? So other Jews joined him in his hypocrisy. Peter is behaving like a hypocrite. Now, what is a hypocrite? What is a hypocrite? How do we understand that word? Well, one way to understand it is, you know that phrase, talk the talk and walk the walk. Hypocrisy says, I talk a big game, but I don't walk what I talk, right? So it's, I don't walk the talk. Or another word that I think of when I think of the word hypocrisy is the word misalignment. Can you say the word misalignment? The last time I took my van to my minivan, yeah, I am proud. I'm a proud owner of a minivan. Any minivan people here? All right. You're cool, all right? You're cool. I brought my minivan to get an oil change, and they said, sir, we want to tell you that we'll do your oil change, but your tires are misaligned. You need to get that fixed. So that's the image I think of. Hypocrisy is not being aligned. Friends, we are more misaligned than we think. We are more misaligned with our values than we think. We might think that we're doing good, that we have these beliefs, but the way that we live them out, there is some misalignment. You know, Peter is misaligned. He's like a light switch, on and off, on and off, on and off, right? Remember 2 weeks ago we learned about Peter. He said, Jesus, I will never betray you. On, right? And then when he's tested, what happens? He denies God 3 times. Off. And then he comes back to Jesus, on, right? He's so on fire. And in Acts chapter 1, if you read about this amazing story after Jesus goes to heaven, who is the first person to proclaim it, to tell people about the good news of Jesus? It's Peter. So here's Peter, the saint, on and off, and now he's on. And then all of a sudden, when push comes to shove and he's tested, he turns off his spirituality. You see, friends, it takes time to be aligned with your values. You have to be patient with yourself. You know, it is one thing to believe in Jesus. And for some, it's hard because to believe in the Messiah is foreign to a lot of people. But believing in Jesus is actually the easy part. Becoming like Jesus is hard and it is long. And if there's one lesson that we can learn from Peter's story, is that becoming like Jesus takes a long time. It takes a long time. And at every mile marker in your journey with Jesus, Jesus speaks to us and he gives us feedback so that we can be honest with ourselves. Let me give you an example. So most days, every day I pray and I worship in the morning. Most days I journal. And I like journaling because my time with God when I journal is more than just getting through a nice devotional book or just reading the scripture by itself. I'm actually, one of my mentors, he uses the word integration. I like that word. I'm able to integrate the beautiful ways God speaks to me through this awesome book we call the Bible into my real life. And every week, usually on Mondays, I do a 90-minute weekly sync session that I call it. It's my time to reflect on my journal entries and my experiences, to process all my notes and to plan the next week. And I'm pretty consistent about that, except for holidays. It's a game changer. And what I do on Monday mornings usually is I reflect on all my previous journal entries to see how God spoke to me and to see all the insights that God gave me. And I'm also aware of the weaknesses in my life as I'm journaling. And there is a weakness that has been popping up consistently a few times. And it's the challenge for me to care for others more. care for others more. Care for others more. Okay, so I'm challenged by God and also from, from counsel and mentors and advisors. Care for others more. Care for others more. So how am I going to change that? How am I going to implement that into my life? And so what I do is now I practice what I call a RISE routine. And I have my friend who I meet with on Mondays, and I have him hold me accountable. So I said, look, I told my friend in Colorado, I want you to hold me accountable, and this is what I want to do every day. I want to do a RISE routine. Every morning, I'm going to wake up. Here's the 4 steps. Number 1, I'm going to spend time in worship and just enjoying God's presence, number 1. Number 2, I'm going to spend time reading on 5 days of the week, 25 minutes every morning. After that, I'm going to take my planner out. I'm going to write the top 3 things I need to do. And my 4th step, before I close that morning routine session, I'm going to pray for someone or a couple, and I'm going to text them and say that I prayed for them as a way to change, to become more caring. And friends, by practicing care, I'm becoming more caring. I'm seeing that. But let me tell you from experience, it doesn't happen overnight. I am slowly becoming the desire that God is placing in my heart. It takes time. Can you say that with me? It takes time. It takes time to be aligned. And look what happens, friends, when we're misaligned. Look what the text says in Galatians chapter 2, verse 13. The other Jews joined him in his hypocrisy, so that by their hypocrisy, even Barnabas was led astray. Who's Barnabas? Barnabas was one of the prominent Christian leaders. And Barnabas was led astray by Peter's hypocrisy and misalignment. So when we're misaligned, we unfortunately negatively impact the people around us. I was a teenager, okay? This is before my new birth experience with Jesus. With a group of my friends, we went to church school and we went to church. But one day we decided to go to downtown Chicago. You know, I'm a Chicago kid, grew up on the north side. So we were in downtown Chicago, and when you're in downtown Chicago, most people go to Michigan Avenue, right? The Golden Mile, and then right there they have Water Tower Place. I remember walking around there with some of my friends, downtown Chicago, and a group of us, like 3 or 4 of us, went to like the 4th floor of this building where there was a parking lot. And someone, not me, okay, not me at all. Someone thought, hey, why don't we drop a coin from here to hit a car? Like, I don't know about that, guys. You know, I was the one who objected, right? It was totally not me who came up with that idea. And so someone had the bright idea, let's throw a coin off of the, 4th or 5th floor of this building. And so someone did it, and the coin went down, hit someone's car. We laughed, ran away, and I totally didn't throw that. To be honest with you, I don't know who threw it, but here's what I learned. Here's what I learned, friends. Here's what I learned. Even though I was innocent. Our misconduct and misalignment negatively impacts people. Peer pressure is more powerful than you think. Peer pressure is more powerful than you think. Good peer pressure and bad peer pressure. Friends, tip for you. Do not underestimate the power of your words and the power of your influence. Peter's acting like a hypocrite, and this prominent leader of the Christian church is negatively influencing everyone. Why is this prominent Christian leader being a hypocrite, and why is he a bad influence? What is at the root of our hypocrisy and our bad influence? And this is the question I was asking when I was reading this passage this week. What's at the root of our hypocrisy and our bad influence? The answer is in verse 12, friends. Look what the text says. Paul wrote the letter. But before certain men came from James, he used to eat with Gentiles. But when they arrived, he began to draw back and separate himself from the Gentiles. He didn't do the right thing because what? My version says, he was afraid of those who belong to the circumcision group. The reason why Peter is being hypocritical, the reason why Peter is a bad influence, is because he's afraid of what the strict law keepers think about him. Peter is fearful about what others think about him. Peter's fear is the reason why he is misaligned and he is a bad influence. Friend, we get into trouble when we are more concerned about what people think about us than what God thinks about us. Let me repeat that again. It's a sobering statement. We get ourselves into trouble when we are more concerned about what other people think about us than when God thinks about us. Do you know what fear does to people? Fear strangles my faith and my courage. Fear is like a mouse. It turns a muscular bodybuilder into a wimp. You take like Arnold Schwarzenegger or the guy, these guys that I see at LA Fitness working out. You put a little mouse there, those guys will jump on top of a bench. That's what fear does. It's like a mouse. It turns strong, burly bodybuilders into wimps. But let me tell you something. Let me tell you something about courage. Let me tell you something about stepping into courage. I'm going to humble brag on my friend Ravo. Okay, I told him I was going to share this story. I asked him for permission. He said, you don't have to get permission. Well, I'm going to brag on you, Ravo. So Raver, we have this small group at the mall, at Yorktown Mall. We go there every Wednesday night. And so he was telling this story at our small group. And he said, I was with he works as a manager in a corporate company. And he said I was at a corporate training with about 20 people. And the way they started off this corporate training recently was, tell us the name of your best jam or your best energetic hype-up song. And so all the managers there were sharing their song, and Rave was thinking to himself, well, what am I going to say? I'm a believer in the Messiah. I don't know if I should say I don't listen to secular music. He was a little fearful. What am I going to say? But for some reason, when that test came, instead of leaning into fear, he leaned into faith. And he told the group, oh, hey guys, thanks for asking. I don't listen to a lot of, I listen mostly to Christian music now. And one song that I like is this song called I Speak Jesus. Oh, cool. They put it on the playlist. And during the breaks, they played that song like 2, 3, 4 times. And there were some trainers who came to Ravo and said, man, thank you for suggesting that song. I like this song. You see, when there's a test, we have 2 options, fear or faith. And thank you, Ravo, for inspiring me to not lean into fear, but to lean into faith. Friends, when we are fearful, we will miss out on opportunities to reveal God's goodness. When we are fearful, we are misaligned with the way that we live, and we negatively influence people with our words. But when we have Christ's courage, our lives will be aligned with our values, and our influence will bless people for God's glory. Let me say that again. When we are fearful, we will miss out on opportunities to reveal God's goodness. But when we have Christ's courage, our lives will be aligned with our values, and our influence will bless people for God's glory. I think of the aroma of the sweet candles that I have in my house. That aroma is sweet. And that's what happens. That smell, that sweet scent is what happens when we live with Christ's courage. And so I want to give a shout out to Ravo. I don't think he realizes how much he encourages me. Friends, I have said it over and over again. Mission statements don't change people. Models do. It's not what I say and the inspiration. It's actually living it out and being an example. And it's one thing to be excited about sharing Jesus and to meet people in the marketplace. It's another thing to actually put it on repeat on your calendar. And the calendar is the true test to see where your priorities, if you're living out your priorities. And so every Wednesday night, sometimes I'm on vacation and I'm away, and I go to Yorktown Mall to just study the Bible out in the open and to have a conversation about a book because I love meeting people. And there have been times where I haven't been able to go because I'm on vacation. Ravo has gone consistently. You've encouraged me, man. There are times where I don't know how I should approach this stranger or this person that I don't know. But through Ravo's encouragement and his presence, he helps me to live with more courage. And so I want to affirm you. I want to affirm you and thank you for your willingness to step up and to say, God, use me, even though it's strange. I want to affirm Stacy. Stacy's here. I know she didn't want to shout out. Okay, so I will give credit to Bella who led. She opened up her home, started a new missional small group in their home, and Stacy said, Bella hit a home run. She did awesome. Good on you. I want to affirm you for being missional. I know we have people in here who are intentional about living on mission, not just talking it, but actually living it, and it's in your calendar. It's in your calendar. You know, part of our new mission statement that we're forming includes our mission is to know Jesus, to grow in Jesus, to serve Him, and to share Him. That share Him portion, that's the pastor and elder's job. No, friends. That's actually every Christian's job. And that's a huge adjustment that we're going to make in a church like this, where every member feels the call to utter and to share the good news of Jesus. And as a group of leaders, we want to come alongside you and mentor you in that journey. But it's going to start with leadership. And I want to affirm the leaders in here who have been living on mission for Jesus. I'm proud of you, and God is proud of you. You know, friends, I don't want to be like Peter. I don't want to live with fear. I want to be like Jesus and live with courage. In fact, I want to be like Paul and live with courage, because Paul had the courage and the audacity to say this to his co-worker, his co-laborer for Jesus. He said in verse 11, when Cephas came to Antioch, I opposed him to his face because he stood condemned. Man, this sounds so harsh. He's going to call out his friend? That sounds tough. I imagine a boxing match between Pacquiao and Mayweather, 2015, and unfortunately, you know how the story ended, right? This is what I'm imagining: a boxing match between Pacquiao and Mayweather, Peter and Paul, these two at the top of their spiritual game, two leaders. Why would Paul call Peter out like this in front of everyone? He just didn't do it privately. He did it in public, the passage says later on. Why does Paul throw a punch to correct Peter? You know why? Paul calls Peter out because he cares. When you truly care for someone, you are willing to correct them when they stray from the path. Friends, here's my tip. Don't run away from feedback. Don't run away from it, because we need feedback in order to flourish. We need feedback in order to flourish. I wrote about this in my blog this past week. You can check it out, thrivewithpurpose.life. And I met a man in Korea at my brother-in-law's wedding. I knew he was a business owner, and through conversation, I knew he was a man of faith. Friends, it's important, especially when you're getting advice for key decisions in your life, whether it's your marriage, your parenting, business, your leadership, career, whatever that is. It's important to find trustworthy mentors that also share your values, and that's very important for me. This Christian business owner is an owner of a luxury hotel in Asia. And I was talking to him over the phone in December because I'm so passionate and I'm hungry to learn, hey, how do faith-based leaders succeed and grow? And I was talking to him, and I said, hey, you know, I really believe, one reason I'm reaching out to you is because I really believe in the power of mentorship, that I need advisors in my life that can help advise based on their example and their experience. And you know what he said to me? He said, Nestor, I totally agree with that. I have 10 people on my list, and I have 5 to 6 close advisors that help me in faith and in business. He said, without that, without the advice from these people, I will not be able to flourish in my faith and my business. And you know what's so powerful about getting an advisor, a mentor, a counselor, a parent, someone that you can trust? What's so powerful about that is that these individuals that you can trust are courageous enough to tell you the truth. They're honest with their feedback. They give you feedback so that you can flourish. Friends, we need feedback in order to flourish. I remember when I was floundering in 2005, 19 years ago in the country of Zimbabwe. I was there on a trip to do an evangelistic meeting through this organization called Share Him. I was there with other students and my professor, Pastor Russell. And one afternoon, I knew I had to preach to about 200-300 young people in a school in Zimbabwe, Africa. And I was in Pastor Russell, Dr. Russell's room, working on my slides and my message, while he was also working on his slides and his message. But I had a really bad habit of stressing out and complaining and venting when things weren't going my way. I couldn't fix a slide. Oh, can't stand this. I tried to format one section of the slide. Man, we only have 20 minutes left. Oh, I don't know if I have enough time. Pastor Russell said, hey, Nestor, can I share something with you? Please stop complaining. It's stressing me out. I can't do my work. Please stop complaining. To this day, I still remember his feedback. I still remember it. I need to be willing to be corrected in order to grow. We need feedback to flourish. Say it with me. We need feedback to flourish. And so here's a tip, friend. Do not be scared when God corrects you. God gives you feedback. You know why? You know why God gives you feedback? Because He wants you to flourish. He wants you to flourish. In my daily prayer routine and my morning meditation, I don't just read scripture or read a good devotional book just to get through it and to know that I did it and check it off my list. The primary purpose I talk to Jesus every day is because I just love Him. He's just awesome and amazing. He's actually the greatest delight and pleasure of my life. Now, I love my wife. Right? She's second. But Jesus, there's the infinite love of Jesus. There's something about that. Before Catherine and I even existed, Jesus loved me. And even if Jesus doesn't come and I cease to exist, Jesus still loves me. There's something sweet about that. And because I love the relationship, I don't just go to read. I go so I can get feedback from Him. And I say, God, do you have feedback for me? And any time that He gives me a correction, some feedback, it helps me flourish. God gives you feedback because He believes in you, friend. He gives you feedback because He believes in you. Peter is one of the top leaders of the Christian movement. Yet he's like a light switch, on and off, and on and off, and on and off, and on and off. He's impulsive. Hey, I'm gonna die for you, Lord, and then turn off the light switch when the test came. And then he turns it back on to preach the gospel, and then when he's eating with the Gentiles and the Jewish people come, he turns it off. Turns it on and off, on and off. Jesus knew that Peter was this on and off, on and off, on and off kind of guy. He knew it. And right before Jesus died, when He had His Last Supper, right before He died, Jesus said in Luke 22, verses 31 and 32, He said these words, because, Peter's like, hey, I got you, Jesus. I'll be on your side. I'm courageous. I don't have any fear. You know what? Jesus is so amazing. And look what He shared in Luke 22, 31 and 32. He said, Simon, Simon. Now, when you say your child's name once, you're trying to get their attention. When you say that twice, Simon, Simon, you better listen up. Simon, Simon, Satan has asked to sift all of you as wheat. All right? So he wants to really destroy your faith. But you know what Jesus said to Simon? Right? This on and off guy. Simon, Simon, Satan has asked to sift you as wheat. But then Jesus says in verse 32, and friends, this is good news. But I have prayed for you, Simon. I have prayed for you. And then he says, Simon, I prayed that your faith would not fail. And then he shares this, friends. And when you have turned back, strengthen your brothers. Wait. Did Jesus say, hey, Peter, if you turn back, I'm going to use you to strengthen people, to tell people about the good news? No. He said, when you come back. Jesus believed that Peter would come back. Jesus believed Peter even though he was like a roller coaster, on and off and on and off and on and off. Because you see, believing in Jesus is the easy part. Becoming like Jesus it takes a long time of ups and downs and ups and downs and ups and downs. And through that, Jesus says to Peter, and he says to modern day Peters today, your identity is not based on whether you're on or off and on and off and on and off. Your identity is based on your connection with me. And because you're connected to me, Jesus says, it's not if you will return, it's when you will return. And I will use you in your brokenness. I will use you in your brokenness. Jesus says, Peter, you are a work in progress. But listen up, Peter, read my lips, boy. Read my lips. But I believe in you. It was so awkward when I was in 3rd grade. And I sat down in my mother's home. And she shared some awkward news that I didn't know how to handle. She said, I think it's like anak, that means son in Tagalog, Filipino language. I don't know if me and dad are going to make it. I don't know if me and dad are going to make it. I didn't know how to process that. I was in 3rd grade. I didn't understand the impact until I grew up later on in life. You know, unfortunately, I don't have a lot of memories with my father. He wasn't really part of my life. However, I do cherish the great memories that I do have. And I'll never forget my 8th grade graduation at North Shore School. I was the valedictorian. Now, don't think it's anything great. There were 8 students in the class, okay? But I was the valedictorian. And they asked me, they said, hey, Nestor Jr., my dad's a Nestor Sr., Nestor, do you want to, would you like to give a valedictorian speech? And I had a choice. Let me get back to you. So I ran it by my mom, I ran it by my dad. And you know what my dad said? My father looked at me and he said, anak, you can do it. Anak, you can do it. Son, you can do it. My father believed in me. And I didn't know that, at the age of 14, that 10 years later, I'd be speaking publicly, proclaiming the good news of Jesus. Anak, you can do it. My father believed in me. And when Jesus was at his worst moment, when Jesus thought that his father abandoned him in Gethsemane, do you know what the scripture says in Luke chapter 22? Jesus is praying his heart out. Verse 39, he goes to the Mount of Olives. Verse 40, he's reaching out to God. Pray that you will not fall into temptation. He goes and he prays in verse 42, Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done. And then you know what the text says? Jesus does not hear a word from the Father, but you know what he gets? Look at verse 43. An angel from heaven appeared to him and strengthened him. The Father didn't share words that said, Jesus, I believe in you. But he said an angel to remind Jesus, hey, I believe in you. You can do this, Jesus. God sent an angel because he believed in Jesus. And do you know why Jesus died on a cross? Do you know why Jesus died on a cross 2,000 years ago? Because he believes in you. Say it with me. Jesus believes in me. And the way I overcome and become courageous and aligned and influential for God's glory is by delighting in God's amazing love. One more verse. Our praise team is going to come up soon, but one more verse before our praise team sings this song for us. So Paul is writing his letter about Peter and his foolishness and how he corrected him. But Paul shares these words in verse 20. He says in Galatians chapter 2, verse 20, he says, I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives where? He lives in me. He's just not a theory, 12 inches or 1 foot above my heart. He's in my body. I have allowed the Messiah to become my identity. And then he says, the life I now live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me. And what did he do? He gave himself for me. Friend, the way that we become courageous and aligned and influential for God's glory is not by thinking that we can do it all on our own. Yes, we can have confidence and trust the abilities that God has given us, but there is a limit. And the end of that limit is the beginning of faith in God's power. It's actually the beginning of surrender to say, Lord, I have reached my capacity of trust, and I need to trust in a power that's much greater and grander than I can imagine, because what I'm about to experience or what I'm going through is bigger than I could ever imagine. It is not by looking to ourselves, but turning our eyes toward Jesus, that we are saved, that we know we are loved, that we know that we are loved, and that we continue to grow, although slowly, to become like Jesus. Our praise team is going to come up here, and they're going to sing, I Speak Jesus. That song that was played at Ravo's training event, I Speak Jesus. But there's someone here who's saying, I want Jesus. I need him. I feel like a failure like Peter. Friends, I feel the same too. Okay, I feel the same too. And if you're saying, Lord, I want Jesus. I want to speak his name and I want him. Would you fill out your Connect card? There's a Connect card in the pew in front of you. Put your best contact, your name. Say, I want to begin a relationship with Jesus. We have a Connect card on the screen. We even have a website. Those of you watching online can fill it out. Let us know as a pastoral team, because we want to come alongside you in your journey with the Messiah. Let us know. Let us know. Walk with Christ. Friends, let's stand together and let's sing, I Speak Jesus. Let's let the world know. Let's let Ravo's training manager friends know that we speak Jesus. Let's let them know. Let's let Jesus know that we speak his name.